National Electrical Code Section 400.8 addresses the use of flexible cords and cables. Specifically, 400.8.10 states that flexible cords and cables shall not be used where run through holes in walls, ceilings, or floors unless in raceways, and where run through doorways, windows, or other openings unless protected from damage. The NEC doesn't explicitly address the use of flexible power cables and conduit sleeves installed through walls to connect devices in adjacent rooms. However, the general rule prohibiting flexible cords from being run through holes in walls without raceways applies. Therefore, based on the NEC, it is not permissible to route a flexible power cable through a conduit sleeve installed in a wall to plug into a receptacle in an adjacent room. The rationale is that disconnecting a device by unplugging it is a required means of disconnect. If the power cable is routed through a wall and plugged into an outlet in the adjacent room, disconnecting the device would require access to the other side of the wall. This would not meet the NEC requirement for a ready means of disconnect. There are additional considerations. In some cases, a power cord may be permanently connected to a device and not intended to be unplugged. If this is the case, it may be permissible to route the power cord through a conduit sleeve in the wall since it would not be a means of disconnect. However, it is important to check the manufacturer's instructions and local building codes for specific requirements. To further elaborate, the purpose of the NEC is to ensure electrical safety. The code establishes minimum requirements for electrical installations to protect people and property from hazards. Allowing flexible cords to pass through walls without protection increases the risk of damage to the cord. This damage could lead to electrical shock, fire, or equipment failure. The requirement for a ready means of disconnect is also a critical safety measure. In an emergency, it must be possible to quickly de-energize a device to prevent further harm. If a power cord is routed through a wall, it may not be possible to quickly unplug the device in an emergency. When installing electrical systems, it's crucial to carefully consider the intended use of the equipment and the environment in which it will be used. If there is any doubt about whether a particular installation meets the requirements of the NEC, it is best to consult with a qualified electrician. They can provide guidance and ensure that the installation is safe and compliant with all applicable codes. In the specific scenario of running power to equipment in an adjacent room, several alternatives to using flexible cords through walls exist. Firstly, consider installing a dedicated receptacle in the adjacent room that is fed by a hardwired circuit. This eliminates the need for a flexible cord to pass through the wall. Secondly, if it is necessary to run wiring through the wall, use raceways such as electrical metallic tubing, also known as EMT, or rigid conduit to protect the conductors. This provides a physical barrier against damage and meets the NEC requirements for running wiring through walls. Thirdly, for low voltage applications, consider using power over Ethernet, known as PoE, which allows both power and data to be transmitted over a single cable. This can eliminate the need for a separate power cord. In summary, while it may seem convenient to run a flexible power cord through a hole in a wall to power a device in an adjacent room, this practice is generally prohibited by the NEC. The code prioritizes safety and requires a ready means of disconnect. By understanding the reasons behind these requirements and exploring alternative wiring methods, you can ensure that your electrical installations are safe and compliant. It is important to always consult the latest edition of the NEC and local building codes for the most up-to-date requirements. Also, remember to consult with a qualified electrician for any electrical work to ensure that it is performed safely and correctly. The NEC is a comprehensive document, and understanding its provisions can be challenging. However, by taking the time to learn about the code and following its requirements, you can help to prevent electrical hazards and protect yourself, your family, and your property. When dealing with electrical installations, it is always better to err on the side of caution. If you are unsure about any aspect of the installation, seek professional advice. A qualified electrician can assess the situation, provide guidance, and ensure that the work is done safely and in compliance with the NEC. Electrical safety is not just a matter of following the code. It is also a matter of common sense. Be aware of the potential hazards of electricity and take steps to avoid them. Never work on electrical equipment while it is energized. Always disconnect the power before performing any work. Use the proper tools and equipment for the job. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, leave it to a professional. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it is not worth risking your safety to save a few dollars. By following these simple precautions, you can help to prevent electrical accidents and protect yourself from harm. The NEC is constantly evolving to reflect new technologies and best practices. It is important to stay up to date on the latest changes to the code to ensure that your electrical installations are safe and compliant. There are many resources available to help you learn about the NEC, including books, websites, and training courses. Take advantage of these resources to improve your knowledge of electrical safety in the NEC. Remember, electrical safety is everyone's responsibility. By working together, we can help to prevent electrical accidents and create a safer environment for everyone. Flexible cords are designed for temporary connections and are not intended for permanent wiring. The NEC specifies the types of wiring methods that are permitted for permanent installations. These wiring methods include conduit cable and surface raceways. Each wiring method has its own advantages and disadvantages, and the best choice for a particular application will depend on several factors, including the type of building, the location of the wiring, and the environmental conditions. When selecting a wiring method, it is important to consider the ampacity of the conductors. Ampacity is the maximum amount of current that a conductor can carry without overheating. The NEC provides tables that list the ampacity of conductors based on their size, insulation type, and ambient temperature. It is important to select conductors that have sufficient ampacity for the intended load. Overloading conductors can cause them to overheat and potentially start a fire. Another important consideration when selecting a wiring method is the type of environment in which the wiring will be installed. In damp or wet locations, it is important to use wiring methods that are suitable for those conditions. These wiring methods are typically made of corrosion-resistant materials and are designed to prevent water from entering the wiring system. In hazardous locations, it is important to use wiring methods that are approved for those locations. Hazardous locations are areas where there is a risk of explosion or fire due to the presence of flammable gases, vapors, or dusts. The NEC specifies the types of wiring methods that are permitted in hazardous locations. These wiring methods are designed to prevent the ignition of flammable materials. In addition to selecting the proper wiring method, it is also important to install the wiring correctly. The NEC provides detailed instructions for installing wiring in various types of buildings and locations. Following these instructions is essential to ensure that the wiring system is safe and reliable. When installing wiring, it is important to use the proper tools and equipment. Using the wrong tools can damage the wiring and create a safety hazard. It is also important to wear appropriate personal protective equipment such as gloves and safety glasses. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it is important to take all necessary precautions to protect yourself from harm. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, leave it to a professional. A qualified electrician can install the wiring safely and correctly. Electrical safety is not just a matter of following the code. It is also a matter of common sense. Be aware of the potential hazards of electricity and take steps to avoid them. Never work on electrical equipment while it is energized. Always disconnect the power before performing any work. Use the proper tools and equipment for the job. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, leave it to a professional. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it is not worth risking your safety to save a few dollars. By following these simple precautions, you can help to prevent electrical accidents and protect yourself from harm. The NEC is constantly evolving to reflect new technologies and best practices. It is important to stay up to date on the latest changes to the code to ensure that your electrical installations are safe and compliant. There are many resources available to help you learn about the NEC, including books, websites, and training courses. Take advantage of these resources to improve your knowledge of electrical safety in the NEC. Remember, electrical safety is everyone's responsibility. By working together, we can help to prevent electrical accidents and create a safer environment for everyone.